I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon? You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
We went down and we watched you guys land on the moon,
No,
which
you
was
didn't. No, you didn't.
what?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened.
240,000 miles away, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communication, food, and survival, on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body. Go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Oh, Kennedy. Well,
and do the other thing.
I know.
That always got me on that quote. We choose to go to the moon and do the other thing. Like, what are you talking about?
For real.
Take up the world, tax the poor. What do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is this other thing you're talking about? So anyway, yeah, it's so amazing to see retrospectively. You know, like my parents grew up in that era. They were children whenever all that was happening, and it's a massive indoctrination moment. This moon concept of actual humans ascending into a cosmological model that allows them to leave the surface of our place and the atmosphere and go into some sort of void where there's nothing for 238,000 miles and get to another rock that doesn't have an atmosphere, by the way. And then they can somehow have propulsion with no atmosphere to land gently on that thing, and then get out and walk around and film each other and have these amazing batteries that are okay at negative 200-degree temperatures. I don't know what kind of batteries those are, but yeah.
But it all begins with the premise of this false cosmological model. And so anybody who's been a fan of our show or have seen some of the episodes we put forth, especially first season, right? We had episode 10, which was the lesser light. Definitely probably a prerequisite to this show. If you have not already seen that episode, we covered the moon and scripture and what observation and experimentation proves about the moon, right? Rather than what is told to us in the mainstream narrative. And then also episode 14, it's not rocket science, would probably be a good one to see and couple with this episode as well, if you haven't already seen it.
Yeah, those are some great episodes. And it truly is an amazing thing in this day and age to be able to look back at this old footage and see where they made mistakes. We're going to go over some of that tonight. We're going to get to see some interesting perspectives because, like we've covered in other programs, you know, this debate on the cosmological model. Do you live, as the Bible describes, with a dome over you, a firmament over you that encloses you, or do you live on this ball that's spinning wildly at three different axes of trajectory at ridiculous speeds that no one can possibly calculate or understand and not feel any of that inertial motion? And are you able to actually leave this place and go somewhere else into the vast void of darkness? It's just, it's crazy to me that we get to look back now because it's almost like there's a renaissance happening, you know, of people that are waking up to the idea that, hey, wait a minute, we can trace the timeline where the narrative changed. Like we can see in the textbooks and the testimony of people, some of them literally alive today, where they talk about how they used to teach a biblical model, and then all the textbooks in the schools and all the narrative changed on the TV, and then they started having the movies and the TV shows coming out, and then it was nothing but space propaganda, full force And we've been under that type of propaganda for, what did you say, like 70 years strong?
Yeah, at least. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yep. And for the first 30 years after the original Apollo missions, there was no internet for people to go and, research into a database of archives of the photographs and the footage. There wasn't that possibility for the public, and they were counting on that. We even find out that a lot of the footage and photographs that they've produced were later produced much longer after the original setting of the Apollo missions, whereas in the 90s, when more technology was made available, photoshopping and new tools became at their disposal, they were able to then put on another show almost with just the archives that they produced.
It's crazy.
It
But
really
yet
is.
they still somehow lost the telemetry data.
Yeah, somehow. They destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to get it back again, they say.
Well, we
Straight
just
from the
taped
horse's
over
mouth.
it. We needed to tape one of those 6-hour long spacewalk missions where they're literally just clasping a metal hook onto something over and over again, and then just like they're actually doing nothing. But either way, yeah, brother, we got so much fun stuff to talk about. Do you want me to pull up this first slide?
Let's look at some scripture first and foremost, right? Genesis 1:16 through 17. God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, and God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. So a couple things there, right? These are lights, he says. We'll reiterate that with some more scripture. And a lot of this is review, like I said, from episode 10. We just want to set this scriptural foundation for the understandings tonight. But he set them where, Sean?
In the firmaments.
Okay. And yeah, we covered that in episode 1, right? Very first episode of Uncommon Ground, the solid vaulted dome structure ceiling placed over the earth that God made on day 2.
That's right. Yeah, all those definitions we pulled from lexicons, dictionaries, all of those agreed upon by 99% of scholars throughout most of time have agreed upon the definitions of these words. And WesBlaze, I tell you what, man, I saw the most incredible interview on another YouTube apologetics channel. They were going over some of these apologetic rebuttals, and the firmament came up. And he was like, yeah, we can talk about that another time. There was a lot of that's up for debate. It does, it doesn't always mean a solid arched dome. And I'm like, wait a minute. Oh yeah, it's Dr. Michael Brown. Thank you.
There it is. Okay.
It was amazing to me because the guy, he supposedly knows Hebrew. He does have a doctorate, and he claims that it's up for debate. And I'm like, in what world do we just get to redefine something? Like, I get it if it was mentioned and then never ever referenced ever again after that. But what we're seeing on screen here that's being described and mentioned, this is the setting for which the rest of scriptures take place. And this setting and how it's described is mentioned again over and over and over again, even in the eschatological coming of the Son of Man as the second coming. Like, this is not just a loose fact or a loose thought that is just a throwaway thought that's only mentioned once. Over 500 times. In application of context, this specific model that you're seeing on screen and the placement of the sun, moon, and stars in the firmament is the foundational setting of the entire story of your existence. So it blows my mind that they would literally just look at it and say, it's up for debate, and then just try to move on. And you're like, bro, what would be what's so scary about thinking, instead of you being on a purposeless random ball flying through space, what's so scary to think that you actually live in a structured environment that was made just for you, and your creator who loves you is right above you?
It's just
how is that scary? How is that intellectually defunct? You know what I'm saying? How is that lesser intelligence to believe that narrative as opposed to the one we've been sold our whole life? It just makes no sense to me.
It's just too controversial for them. They would have to then call other men liars and governments liars and things that we have no problem doing, but others.
We're going to review some liars tonight.
Yeah, right. Would you read this one?
Sure. Jubilees 2:8. And on the 4th day, he created the sun and moon and the stars. He set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon all the earth, and to rule over the day and the night, and divide the light from the darkness. And similarly, in 2 Ezra chapter 6, verse 45, on the 4th day you commanded the brightness of the sun, the light of the moon, and the arrangement of the stars to come into being.
So it looks like the moon is for light. It's not for reflecting another light.
That's right.
And we covered all that, right? And we showed how when you multiple different ways of measuring the temperature of moonlight reveals that the moonlight is always more cold than in the shade from the moonlight. Whereas under the sun, the sunlight is hotter than the shade, obviously, but moonlight was cold, and it so apparently emits its own sort of illumination.
Hey, I can't remember if you cover this in the presentation we're about to do, but did you cover the inverse square law of light as versus the luminosity of the moon and how it traveling 238,000 miles to get to us to be the brightness it is versus the brightness it would have to be at its point of origin, which is the reflecting off the surface of the moon itself? The luminosity value of it would have to be so high, according to the inverted square law of light, that the astronauts would literally burst into flames.
I'd imagine, yeah, of
If
course.
they were standing on the surface of the moon, you wouldn't be able to take any kind of picture. It would just be complete white exposure on any camera. The moment you open the shutter lens, it would be so bright you'd never see it. But
Exactly.
yeah, but a lot of people don't know about the inverse square law of how light travels and dissipates as it gains distance.
Isaiah 13:10, just to run through a few of these. The moon will not shed its light. 30:26, the light of the moon will be as the light of the sun. Letter of Jeremiah 167 from the so-called Apocrypha. It says, nor give light as the moon. So the moon gives light again there. Ezekiel 32:7, and the moon will not give its light. Would you read Siraj through Mark?
Star 43:7 says the sign for a feast comes from the moon, a luminous body that wanes when it completes its course. Matthew 24:29, and the moon will not give its light. And Matthew 13:24, Yeshua repeating the day of the Lord, the moon will not give its light.
So lots of scripture and early witnesses there to reaffirm this idea here that the moon is not, it's nothing other than a luminous body in itself. But Genesis 1:26 lets us know that God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Nowhere in there does he say he gives dominion or rule to man over the heavens.
Yep, that's right.
We see this reiterated in Enoch 15. Psalm 115 talks about this. The moon is not something that we as mankind were given dominion over, to be able to walk around on it or to live on it or to rule over it in any way.